Commons European Scrutiny Committee, GettyPhilip Hammond and Brexiteers have sent a warning shot to the European Union over who is in charge. The Chancellor appeared before the Commons European Scrutiny Committee to tackle questions on the Brexit financial settlement, the policy implications of the transitional arrangement and the future of financial services. He said, "Obviously and clearly Parliament is sovereign and will be the arbiter of decisions we make in terms of the European Union. I think our EU interlocutors understand that our Parliament is sovereign." During proceedings, Sir Bill Cash, an arch-Brexiteer, also took a swipe at the EU, saying that they needed to know who was in charge, and that was the UK. He said, "It seems to me that the EU seems to think that it has the right to lay down the terms and we must respond to it. They don't seem to have got the message that Article 50 is actually a complete change in the nature of the European Union itself. It changed the European Union." Sir Bill then asked for assurances that the EU would not be able to slip in new rules or penalties that would penalise the UK during the transition period. Mr. Hammond said, "You're asking, could regulations or rules be introduced during the transition period that we maybe didn't like and whether we would be required to implement them?" Commons European Scrutiny Committee Sir Bill Cash, an arch-Brexiteer, also took a swipe at the EU over their control issues. "We think we have visibility of the pipelines in this case, and the relatively slow pace that the EU sausage machine grinds works in our favour. We will have an implementation period of around 2 years from the time we cease to take part as a participant in decision-making, and, during the course of 2019, quite a lot of the EU decision-making apparatus will be in a state of suspended animation during parliamentary elections. We think it is unlikely that we will be presented with legislative proposals coming into force during the intended implementation period that we are completely unaware of or have not had time to shape, or have not been consulted on." GettyPhilip Hammond addressed the committee ahead of Theresa May's new Brexit offer being put to the test. "One of the issues we seek to clarify during the implementation period is good faith assurances that shortcut processes won't be adopted to fast-track legislation that would be discriminatory against us." Sir Bill then tackled the issue of the financial settlement, or the EU divorce bill. Kelvin Hopkins asked for clarification on the cost of the final divorce bill, reminding Mr. Hammond that the government said in December it would be between £35 to £39 billion. Mr. Hammond shot back, "Well, it is clear that we have agreed a set of principles that will allow for us to make an estimate of what the total amount will be. Of course there is always scope for movement, but we think £35 minus £39 billion will be a reasonable estimate." GettyPhilip. The Prime Minister set out her strategy for negotiations on the UK's future relationship with the EU. Mr. Hammond was also pressed on whether or not the British public should have a say on the final Brexit deal. He said, "I think that the referendum decision has been made. We now need to, as a parliament and as a government, take it forward and deliver it, and to do that in the best way we can and get the best possible deal we can." Mr. Hammond addressed the committee ahead of Theresa May's new Brexit offer being put to the test this week. Negotiations between British and EU officials will resume in Brussels. The Prime Minister set out her strategy for negotiations on the UK's future relationship with the EU in a high-profile speech which earned her breathing space from warring Remain and Leave factions in the Conservative Party. But Mrs May's plans for maintaining a soft Irish border while leaving the customs union were thrown into doubt after Ireland's Foreign Minister Simon Coveney said the EU may not accept her proposals. Mrs May is hoping to get a post-Brexit transition period signed off at the European Council summit of EU leaders on March 22 to 23, clearing the way for exploratory talks on trade. But tensions over the Irish border issue remain and could hold up an agreement.